They don't want nobody to know that she's white. They don't want nobody to know that she's white. Renee Good, the 37-year-old woman that ICE agent blew her face off in broad daylight after she had just dropped off her 6-year-old child, her 6-year-old boy to school, is white, and they don't want you to know that. They don't want you to know that because it's going to fuck with their narrative. A ICE agent took his firearm, aimed it into the car of a white woman, and blew her face off. Blew her face off. But everywhere that you read, all the media that's reporting it, they keep saying 37-year-old woman, 37-year-old woman. They refuse to say her name. They refuse to show her picture because they don't want you to know that she's white. They don't want you to know that she's white. ICE murdered a white woman, blonde, blue-eyed white woman, shot her in the face 3 times. They don't want you to know that. And they are purposely not letting you know that it's a white woman whose face they blew off because they don't want you to switch sides. They do not want you to switch sides. They don't want you to work collectively with the oppressed after realizing you too are being oppressed. They don't want you to switch sides. That's why they're not letting you know that it was a white woman. It's a white woman. A white woman. I'm going to keep saying that over and over and over and over and over. It's a white woman, blonde hair, blue eyes. They blew her face off. And the government is currently trying to justify it. The government is currently trying to justify it. They're lying to your face because we all seen the videos. This man is walking around free after taking his firearm and aiming it into the car of a civilian, unarmed civilian, and blew her face off. And it's one of your very own. She had also lost her husband. So now her children are parentless. Where is all the pro-life extreme right? Where are you guys? Where are you? Huh? Now that you know it was a white woman that they murdered, not a criminal, not a migrant, not a black person, a white American woman got her face blown off with the help of your tax-paying dollars.
Honestly, this is now becoming the sad reality of Americans right now, because when I actually saw this particular update, I was like, this is worse than anything. It is more annoying than in a broad daylight someone was people, and at the end of the day, most of the news narrative that we're actually carrying this news is literally saying a 37 years old. You can go check it out, you can go browse it out yourself. You are literally going to be seeing the same thing until a lot of black folks started rooting out, started bringing out the identity of this lady. This is quite sad, honestly, and that is why I actually played out that first clip for you guys. I'm going to allow you guys watch other people's opinion and also see what actually transpired. Credit belongs to the original creators of every single clips and stitches we have in our today's episode. If you have not subscribed, what are you waiting for? Do it, subscribe, like this video, drop me your comments, and lastly, do not forget to share for every other person to get this good news. With that being said, let's dive right into this video. I'll be back with commentaries, and this is just for educational purposes. This is just for educational purposes only. Let's go, guys.
White privilege is only afforded to those who uphold white supremacy. And white people are learning that lesson now in a way that they have never had to before. A white woman was shot and killed in Minnesota because she aligned herself with people of color. This white woman was not the first person to be killed by an ICE agent. Let's be clear. The reason why it's going viral is because she's white. And the message here is very clear. They want you to know that as a white person, if you are not willing to uphold white supremacy, your white privilege will be revoked. Because that is the entire agreement in which whiteness stands upon. It is not a biological group. It is not a culture. It is a political category. It is a legal and social category created to be a buffer to prevent class consciousness. They were offered white privilege in exchange for aligning with the power structure against Black and Indigenous people. Will get better jobs, better wages, better access to public spaces, and legal protection against brutality as long as you are a buffer class between the rich and wealthy and the exploited class. But if and only if you stand with the power structure. That is the contract. And it has always been enforced by violence. And this isn't new, right? The system only works if white people are compliant. It only works if white people align themselves with the power structure. Otherwise, there is nothing to protect the rich and wealthy against the exploited. Because guess what? We're all the exploited. This is the contract that your ancestors signed. But the problem was the privileges were always temporary. Now we're living in a world where even the white privilege has dried up. No more stable jobs, no more pensions, no more home ownership. The rich and wealthy have withdrawn the material goods. All has been hoarded by the 1%. All that is left is the psychological wage of whiteness, which is now being revoked in a public shooting. And now there's nothing left. There's nothing left. A system built on the foundation of exploitation of human capital was always going to be unstable. And now we are in the final stages of that instability. As a white person, this should be the final straw for you. No more white privilege, no more good jobs, no more home ownership. Now, no more protection from the police and government. You have no reason to continue to be the buffer class between the exploited and the rich. If this is not a wake-up call, I don't know what will be. You have been psychologically manipulated for half a millennia. Now they are finally showing you that they don't care about you either. So what are you going to do? How will you proceed? You have no more reasons to act indifferent to the changes happening in America. Because now white privilege is nothing but a cute fancy title. A credit card with no funds, babe. The system is officially bankrupt.
I saw a woman in a car attempting to get away from an ICE agent who then shot her 3 times point blank. Say that to yourself repeatedly in the next coming days after watching that video. Because in the next coming days, the media and many other different entities will attempt to stage ideas in your mind to start getting you to doubt exactly what you saw in that video. You need to watch that video and you need to remember what you saw, write it down what you saw after that video, and repeat it to yourself every time you start finding yourself doubting it. This is called staging an idea, and there will be many who will attempt to make you doubt that idea, but repeat it over and over again. I will repeat what I saw in that video. I saw a car as it was attempting to leave a situation. I saw a pickup truck, and out came 2 men. One of these men attempted to open the door on the SUV. He then backed off when another agent beside him pointed their gun inside the vehicle and fired 3 times. The car then jerked away and crashed. Write that down. Say it again.
A woman who was shot to death earlier today in Minneapolis, Minnesota, by an ICE agent at near point blank range, even though she had both of her hands visible on the steering wheel, has been identified as Renee Nicole Good, a 37-year-old. I'm not going to show you any photos or videos of the scene itself, but I would like to show you a couple of photos of Renee and tell you what people had to say about her. Speaking to the Star Tribune earlier today, Renee's mother, Donna, said, "Renee was one of the kindest people I've ever known." She went on to say, "Renee was extremely compassionate. She's taken care of people all of her life. She was loving, forgiving, and affectionate. She was an amazing human being." On her Instagram, Renee described herself as a wife and mom from Colorado experiencing Minneapolis. Renee's mom, Donna, said of her death today, she was probably terrified, and added that the circumstances of her death were, quote, "so stupid." It's just like, so it's so needless. This did not need to happen. There was no reason for 2,000 poorly trained, fail-son ICE agents to descend on Minneapolis. These are men who don't know how to handle these stressful situations. They don't know what they're doing. They have no emotion regulation, no self-control, no training. They are wholly unqualified and they are heavily armed. In interactions with law enforcement is supposed to be trained to de-escalate, to prevent violence, to get control of the situation and keep it safe. And yet time and time again, not just with ICE, with law enforcement in general in the US, it is expected that civilians who are interacting in this way, usually for the first time in their life, have superhuman self-control, that they know how to navigate the situation better, that they stay level-headed and not panic. Meanwhile, ICE agents can flip the fuck out at the drop of a hat. Time and time and time again over the last year, we've seen ICE agents shoot innocent people. We've seen them ram their cars into innocent people. We've seen them completely overreact and brutalize the bodies of Americans over and over and over. They have no emotion regulation. They are entirely out of control. Renee's death today did not need to happen. There are unconfirmed reports on social media that Renee volunteered to help be in like an ICE Watch, Migra Watch group, trying to protect her neighbors, trying to do good protecting her neighbors. Likewise, there are unconfirmed reports, and again, I'm not going to show you any of the photos that are posted online, unconfirmed reports that after this ICE agent shot Renee in the head, and he fired at least 3 shots that we know of, I don't know how many hit her, that ICE agents refused to let someone at the scene who said that they were a physician attend to Renee. I don't know whether that would have made the difference or not, but we've seen multiple reports over the last year of ICE refusing to allow qualified medical professionals to tend to people that they injure. There are so many reports over the last year of ICE refusing to allow both medical professionals and legal counsel access to folks that they have injured and abducted, both at the scene and afterward. It's unclear whether anybody from ICE attempted to administer aid to Renee, but they wouldn't let people near the car afterward. And there are also multiple reports that ICE was rifling through the car. Essentially, it's a crime scene, essentially destroying evidence, tampering with evidence in the moment after this happened. It's also unclear what happened to Renee's car afterward and how evidence will be processed in other cases like this, where ICE has shot and injured people. They've refused to turn over body camera footage to the court. There have been multiple cases dismissed because ICE has been accused, or Customs and Border Patrol have been accused of tampering with evidence, disappearing evidence, and also not giving truthful, accurate testimony. So I think we should all expect that will likely happen with this case as well. I know there are vigils all around the country this evening, and there are more tomorrow. I really encourage folks to do what you need to do to regulate. If showing up with other people and participating in a vigil honoring Renee and other victims of the American Gestapo known as ICE, if that's helpful for you, if that gives you a chance to connect with other people in solidarity, if that gives you a chance to kind of feel comforted and also motivated to do something, then I really encourage you to go do that. Bring a friend with you. But I completely agree with Minneapolis Mayor Frey that we all have to not take the bait here, especially for folks in Minnesota. What they want is violent riots in the streets so they can justify more of this. They want an America where ICE goons can do this to you and me and anybody they want any day of the week, and they will never be held accountable. They want to feel free to murder you in the street and get away with it. I really encourage you to go watch Mayor Frey's press conference from earlier today. I posted a big chunk of it on my YouTube. I think it sets the right tone. I think he says the right things. We need to focus on justice. We need ICE to get the fuck out of our cities. We need the federal government to get the fuck out of our cities. We need a restoration of the rule of law. We need to have our constitutional rights and our lives defended. And we have to get justice for what ICE is doing now all across this country. And at the same time, we have to not play into their hand. We have to be smart. We have to move. We have to continue to build our power. We have to make sure that this does not become the new normal in the United States of America. This is entirely un-American. This is entirely unacceptable. And we, the American people, have got to refuse to allow this to be what is done in America. This is not the future that we are willing to accept in the United States. So please be safe if you're going to a vigil tonight or tomorrow morning. Please take care of each other. Please take care of each other. Remember, we have an obligation to keep each other safe. I'm so sorry to everybody in Minneapolis. I'm so sorry for all of the terror that Kristi Noem and DHS have brought to your city, and none of y'all deserve this. We in Portland stand in solidarity with you. We're thinking of you, and however we can help, please let us know.
The death of Renee Nicole Good by an ICE agent in Minneapolis is more than just a tragedy. It shows us that white supremacy and systemic racism doesn't just hurt the people they're supposed to hurt. It ends up warping the entire system of power where even white bodies, ironically, aren't protected. Let's talk about how racism hurts everybody and how the immigration enforcement system in the US is rooted in anti-Black racism, and why collective liberation is the only way we can heal the systems that are inherently broken in the US. For some context, Renee Nicole Good was a U.S. citizen, a mother of three, a poet, who was shot 3 times by an ICE agent in Minneapolis on January 7th. But this is not an isolated event, you see. Last year, 32 people died in ICE custody, disproportionately Black and brown individuals. If you think about it, the same violence and neglect that happens in these detention centers mirrors and has evolved from the same racist state violence that has come from slavery to Jim Crow to mass incarceration and now detention centers. As this is a system that is structured around the belief that some lives are inherently more punishable, more dangerous, more disposable. And this just shows me there's a problem with the US, and that problem is white supremacy and racism that you can see is hurting everybody. Because once a society accepts cruelty towards one group, first Black people, now the undocumented, it becomes easier to expand policing, brutality, surveillance, and violence until more and more communities are caught in its reach and where collective safety and dignity is undermined. Now, the unaliving of a white woman under this system reveals white supremacy's true goal, not protection, but the erosion of community structures and ultimate authority, because racism has taught those in power to redefine safety as a protection of the state rather than protection of the people, because a system that can kill a mother sitting in her car and then defend that violence is a system that has lost all commitment to humanity. We are told that militarized ICE raids are meant to keep us safe, but in reality, they are meant to divide, to dehumanize, and to terrorize, targeting people of color, immigrants, and now white allies. No one, let me say this again, is truly safe, free, or connected under a white supremacist state. However, history shows us that only progress comes through collective liberation. For example, in 1968 to 69, there was the multiracial San Francisco state strike that led to ethnic studies being a very prominent study in universities. That was only possible through the collective liberation of all ethnic groups that came together to fight for one cause, which was to have diversity and freedom in a lot of these schools. The greatest victory of a white supremacist state is when we turn our backs on each other, but really our greatest power is rooted in solidarity, community, and diversity. Racism hurts everyone. White supremacy benefits no one, and the only path forward is choosing connection over division and care over control.
The more of us who wake up, the harder they have to go in beating us into submission. I just heard them say after, first and foremost, rest in peace, rest in power, Renee Nicole Good, the 37-year-old woman who literally put her life on the line to stop ICE from terrorizing her neighbors. She understood the assignment. Very few of us are willing to give our lives in that way. And she obviously couldn't have known that was going to be the outcome. But on a soul level, on a spiritual level, I need y'all to see, we need to see this, and I need us to not be scared off. Easier said than done, I understand that. But on a soul level, if you believe in a higher power, if you believe in the Most High, if you believe in God, then you know there is no risk or cost too high for our collective humanity, our collective liberation. To stand up against injustice, to stand up against this pure evil. It's demonic. It's literally from the devil himself. I heard when I turned on the news just now, well, they start off by mentioning that this is right around the corner. Where Renee Good was just murdered today was right around the corner from where George Floyd was murdered in Minneapolis. So basically, the news anchor, they were talking amongst themselves, obviously, and saying like, oh, you know, this area is no stranger to unrest and demonstrations or protests or whatever. And then they say, yeah, George Floyd was murdered right around the corner from here. And then They check in. This is what really struck me. And y'all, they said, basically it's like too soon to tell if these are going to be peaceful demonstrations or y'all, the demand for peaceful protest, peaceful response, turn the other cheek. While the police in Minneapolis, ICE agents, police throughout this country murder their own citizens in cold blood on camera. The call, the requirement, the demand, the moral implication from the media and from society is, but those protesters better be peaceful. And most of the time, almost always, folks are. And then they will literally plant instigators and aggressors in the crowd, arsonists, vandalizers, to give a bad name to movements that are calling for justice, revolution, and liberation. They have to criminalize and demonize resistance. It is imperative. This is nothing new. We know this has been on repeat throughout history. The lie and the facade, one of them, that is becoming so apparent is how we have tried to play the moral police for the rest of the world. How we have tried and been rather effective in our propaganda to legislate morality and decide who is committing war crimes, who's committing human rights violations, when we are committing the most mass evil, both domestically and abroad. The facade is so up when it comes to this country being in any type of moral positioning to tell anyone else how to govern their nations, how to treat their citizens. This United States government does not care about its people. It's evidenced by mass incarceration, by how we treat gun violence. We allow babies to be shot up in school. We allow our citizens, especially Black and brown folks, to be slaughtered on camera by police, and even white women who stand in support of safety, protection, and basic human rights and human dignity to be upheld in our Black and brown neighbors. The lies, the deceptions. A lot of people throughout the world and in this country who have had the boot of the U.S. empire on their neck are very much and have always been very aware. But now, the average citizen is waking up. It's too obvious. It's too in our face. Democrat, Republican, left, right. Too many people are waking up. And so they need to try to scare us into submission. Y'all, we outnumber them. I know it's said a lot, but we outnumber them. Keep talking. Keep standing alongside of and standing up for your neighbors. Do not let this in Minnesota scare you. Again, I know that can be easier said than done, but y'all, on a soul level, we don't want to get to our deathbed knowing we could have done something, regardless of the cost, and decided instead to look away, to take the easy way out. Rest in peace, Renee Good. We will honor your life and legacy. We need more Renee Goods in this world. We need an end to the U.S. empire. So anytime China, Russia, Iran, anyone, y'all, aren't you sick of this country bullying you? Are y'all, I hope y'all are strategizing and coming up with a plan, because a lot of us want rescue from this evil, demonic Babylon.
Look at me for a second. In Minneapolis, an ICE agent shot and killed a 37-year-old activist, Renee Good. Now tens of thousands are in the streets, and there are rallies across the country. And here's the part that should bother all of us. Two Americas are watching the same video and seeing two completely different realities. The government says it was self-defense. She tried to hit an agent with her car. Local officials and protesters say the shooting looks unjustified. So what's actually happening? We're turning immigration enforcement into something that feels like domestic conflict, federal agents on one side, citizens on the other, both convinced the other side is the threat. And when that happens, the next split-second decision becomes easier. The next protest becomes angrier. The next incident spreads faster. You'll hear the other side say, abolish ICE. You'll hear our side say, agents have to go home alive. But if Congress can't even get into a facility to see what's going on, what exactly are we becoming? And the real question is, how many more cities are one viral clip away from the same fire?
Just a reminder, those photos federal agents are taking right now aren't random. They are part of a growing surveillance system with very little public oversight. Facial recognition, phone tracking data, and license plate readers. Notice how in the video spreading ICE agents keep on instigating, saying things like, didn't you learn from what just happened? Right after what happened to Renee Good, who was a US citizen, who was trying to leave and lethal force was used multiple times. And they just drove away like nothing happened. What was tested on immigrants didn't stay there because now they're expanding it to American citizens. Yeah, because it's always first it's for safety, then it's for law enforcement. They're trying to normalize this. This isn't left versus right. This isn't MAGA versus liberal. This is about power and control. I have seen countless videos of ICE agents going beyond enforcement, just antagonizing people, immigrants, and citizens. And now there's reports of a Target worker who was a US citizen being taken and dropped off at a Walmart nearby, beaten and bleeding. They want this division, they want us arguing, while people at the top tell us to not believe our own eyes. Because the moment you accept that as normal, you've already given up more freedom than you realize. And if you think this can't happen to you, that's exactly how it starts.
Americans, I want to talk to you for a second. The most shocking thing about events like the murder of Renee Nicole Good by ICE agents and events like it, watching from the outside, is just how little resistance there seems to be within America to what your government is doing. I don't know if it's because you support it, or those of you who don't support it don't know what to do, or whether you're all just too comfortable and too distracted to take action against the rising fascism in your country. But I'm going to assume that it's that you just don't know what to do. Now, I grew up in apartheid South Africa. It's no coincidence that white South Africans like Peter Thiel and Elon Musk are playing a part in the regime that is currently unraveling the fabric of your society. So if you do want to resist Trump's fascism, here are some things that you can do that were effective against apartheid in South Africa. Your number one enemy is going to be normalization. That is, starting to accept things that were previously unacceptable. This has already happened on a huge scale in America. Things that are happening now were unimaginable a year ago, and in a year's time they will be mundane. One way you can stay tethered is firstly to talk to other people and make sure that they are challenging you and keeping you grounded, but also just keep a diary, a brief diary, of your emotional reaction to the things that are happening, so that in 6 months or a year's time you can make sure that you haven't drifted away and start to find things acceptable that previously you found abhorrent. Oppression always relies on bureaucrats. Fascist regimes need paperwork, they need people in offices, they need pen pushers, and as somebody engaged in resistance, don't underestimate your power to waste the time of those people. Put in false reports, use whistleblower powers, waste their time in any way that you can. Anything that puts a bit of grit in the engine of the fascist regime can slow it down and can potentially save people. Think local. It's tempting to believe that change has to happen on a national scale, that it happens with big speeches or general elections. That's not how apartheid was brought down in South Africa. Resistance happened on a street-by-street level. It happened with community organizations, with friends and neighbors working out plans and sticking together. So look around your local neighborhood and remember that the nation is made up of tiny little bricks like the one that you inhabit and have power over. If you change your street, you change your neighborhood, you can change your country. Documentation is power. Keep a record of what's happening. Make notes about the names or the license plates or any information that you can glean about ICE agents and other people who are enacting oppression. Remember, regimes change, and when regimes change and people are held to account legally, it can be useful to track people down if there's evidence about who was doing what and when. Culture shifts before politics, so don't underestimate the power of art and music and poetry and stories to change people's minds. Often it can be useful to reach people on an emotional level because that's what drives our decision making. We're not driven by evidence, we are all driven by how we feel. If you can change the way that somebody feels, you can potentially change their political outlook. And most importantly, believe that change is possible. Carry on having conversations with people that you disagree with. Remember, it can be emotionally satisfying to say, I'm not talking to you, I'm cutting you out because I disagree with you, but that is a position of enormous privilege. People who are being oppressed by a fascist regime don't have the luxury of opting out. Remember, this moment will pass. Apartheid in South Africa fell. The Nazis fell in Germany. Trump one day will be a distant memory. So set out into the world to create change with the belief that change will happen. It's just a matter of when.
Why is no one talking about the fact that the ICE agents in Minnesota never asked the woman if she was a United States citizen or not? They never asked her if she was a United States citizen at all. And ICE does not have any jurisdiction over United States citizens. And that's the part that no one's talking enough about for me, because none of this would have happened if they just would have started off with the right question. Are you a United States citizen? This should have never happened regardless of if she was a citizen or not. But the fact that ICE doesn't have any jurisdiction over citizens means that you instructing for her to get out of her car without any rationale as to why should have been preceded by the question of, are you a United States citizen? But instead, they did not. They tried to open her car and she tried to drive away. And unfortunately, the ICE agent shot her in the face. And now she is deceased. The idea that ICE in any way is justified in this shooting is disgusting.
ICE isn't just like the Gestapo. They're closer to slave catchers. And once that clicks, a lot of people get real uncomfortable real fast. Every time ICE comes up, someone reaches for that Gestapo comparison. And I get why they do it. Raids in the middle of the night, neighbors disappearing, families gone before breakfast. That's the kind of terror that people were taught to recognize, as long as it happened to people that looked like them. But that comparison is doing a whole lot of emotional work that it just doesn't deserve. Because structurally, historically, ICE does not move like the Gestapo. They move like slave patrols. And the reason nobody wants to say that out loud is because slave patrols aren't foreign. They're not exotic. They're not evil elsewhere. They're American, homegrown. Slave patrols were legal, state-funded, community-supported. Their job was simple: stop people, demand proof, and decide on site who belonged and who didn't. No crime required, no trial, no explanation. Just papers, accent, skin, and presence. That's it. That's the blueprint. They weren't hunting ideology. They weren't fighting enemies of the state. They were enforcing status. Who's allowed to move? Who's allowed to stay? Who can be taken and who can be returned? And here's the part people really don't want to sit with. Slave patrols are the history that a lot of white families don't talk about because it's not abstract, it's not distant, and it doesn't end with, and the bad guys lost. It sounds like something someone's great-great-grandfather may have done on a Tuesday afternoon. So people grab the Gestapo instead, because the Gestapo says that could never be us. Slave patrols say this is exactly us. The Gestapo comparison lets you condemn terror without interrogating lineage. Slave patrols, however, force you to admit that American terror didn't need a dictator. It needed law. It needed paperwork. It needed permission. It needed neighbors that said, well, that's just how this works. That's why ICE feels so familiar to some and shocking to others, because some of us recognize the pattern immediately. Civil enforcement, administrative power, we're just enforcing the law, you know? Paperwork treated like morality, and families treat it like inventory. Different uniforms, different century, same logic. And that's why the Gestapo comparison keeps circulating, because it centers fear once it touches people that look like the ones telling the story. Slave patrols force a deeper realization, right? What if the terror wasn't imported? What if it was foundational? What if it never actually ended? It just learned a new language. ICE is not an accident. It's not a deviation. And it isn't new. It's old power doing what it's always done, just with updated branding and better PR.
And once you see that, yeah, that's the oh shit moment.
Welcome back, guys. And I have this simple question I want to ask. What is the real duty of ICE agents? What were ICE agents paid for? What is their job? And to couple with the fact that every single time that it happens, they try to change the narrative and make it look like is another different thing, is what I don't understand. And I don't even know if till date, that particular ICE agent that pupilled that white woman in a broad daylight is being brought to justice. It is now more annoying, and this is why a lot of black people keep saying that the media is being controlled by white supremacy. Because why do the media keep narrating a 37 years old, a 37 years old, a 37 years old? Why were there not a detailed information? And at this point, if a lot of white folks would not sit up, open their eyes to see that, you see, this particular country, they are literally doing every possible best to take out from the hands of black people. If they don't sit out to see, these are things that is going to be happening. For crying out loud, this woman was not an illegal immigrant. And how do you just go ahead and pull off the trigger 3 good times on a woman? What happened to that boy? A child that his mother dropped off at school. What happened to him? Who is going to pick him up? What are they going to tell him? What will that child grow up tomorrow to become after hearing all of this? How would that child survive the trauma of not having a mother within a blink of an eye, just by someone's stupidity, carelessness, wickedness? ICE agents has literally now left their job to now searching people personally. They want you to carry your papers east, west, north, and south. We keep hearing stories that citizens are being detained before they will be released, all in the name of they are trying to be sure that you are a US citizen. Is it the job of an ICE agent? So they don't have any other form, any other means. They don't have any other thing to do to detect people that are illegal, to detect people that they are supposed to deport. It's just to go open fire anywhere they want to open, do anything they want to do to anybody and just go their way. And to even have it that the media have to cover it up just because they don't want it to make it look like, oh, it is actually the white person that is actually affected. It's now more disappointing. The moment black people step back, a lot of things change. And a lot will still keep changing. A lot will still keep unfolding. So the earlier every single white folks wakes up, the better for every single person. My heart bleed for that child in particular, that the mom went to drop off school. My heart bleeds. Because this will not be erased from the media. This will be on the net forever and ever. That child will grow, research on this issue. Only God knows what that child will turn out to be. If not God, that will help that child. Black Americans have been warning. Black Americans have been saying it. Now the reality is happening. Subscribe, like, comment, and share. And credit belongs to the original creators of every single clips and stitches we have in our today's episode. I want to say a very big thank you to every single one of you supporting, liking, commenting, sharing, dropping super thanks, and also joining my membership. I do not take you guys for granted. You guys are absolutely the best. But let me know your honest opinion in the comment section. For disclaimers, this is just for educational purpose only. I'll see you guys in my next one. For now, bye guys. I love you guys.